Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thursday, August 14th edition of the Kubernetes SIG Network Community Meeting. As always, this meeting is governed by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, boiling down effectively to be nice to one another, so please do be nice to one another. If you have questions or interjections during the meeting, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom, as that kind of helps us to organize things. It's an open agenda meeting. You are more than welcome to put something on the agenda that was linked in the calendar invite. We have a couple of items right now. It's not super big, so if you put something on there, there's a good chance we'll be able to talk about it. If we can't get to anything, we can always park it for the next meeting. With that, I think we'll go ahead and get started on triage. And I'll start sharing my screen here. There we go. All right. So I already popped open triage and pulled out the ones that are unassigned first. So we'll start going through those. The first one that we had was this one that came up 3 days ago, frequent churn between endpoint slice objects. I read through this one ahead of time, and the TLDR is that on their K3's cluster, which has, it's like a single control plane node, they were getting to where they were hitting like the 100 limit for endpoint slices, and so it was churning and like creating splitting things out. But apparently during that process, that was causing failures for them. And the last thing that was really updated on here was Ben asked them if you can produce this on a more recent version of Kubernetes. They do have a workaround in that they have a workaround in that they just kind of upped the limit for now, but the anticipation is that they'll hit it again at certain limits and so forth. So did anybody else get a chance to take a look at this one, or does this ring any bells for anybody?
I mean, I guess this is my area from the past. I honestly probably won't have a lot of time to look at it. It's believable to me that you could have a sequencing issue here where any number of things could happen, right? You could have we need more information about when the problem is happening. Is it happening after a create? Like, so basically whenever you are at the limit of
Yeah,
endpoint
they mentioned
slice.
that it's hard to reproduce because it seems as though it might be that it arises only when the control plane is under heavy load. So the timing problem may only really raise its head when things are being crushed.
Yeah. I mean, that lines up. I mean, it's basically I don't even know what K3s uses for data plane. Is it kube proxy or is it some other?
It's been years since I've used K3s. I don't remember. It's probably
Okay.
changed. I don't know. I don't know what has changed is rather what I mean to
Yeah.
say. So.
I mean, and that's, if this were a bug that said kube proxy has issue Y when doing, that might be easier to support. But just K3s, we don't, that as far as I know, we don't offer support for that on its own. We need to know like the
Right. We
specific
just
kube
need,
components.
yeah, we need
And
to
I
see if
get
it's
the premise is like,
reproducible
hey, this is
on the
an issue with
standard.
endpoint slice controller. My guess is it's not so much endpoint slice controller directly, it's more how endpoint slices are being distributed to the data plane in use here. I don't know what that data plane is.
Well, so he says though that endpoints are getting moved between the two endpoint slices, which doesn't the endpoint slice controller explicitly try to avoid doing that?
Yeah, it yes.
So it seems like that's not working based on what they're seeing.
It would be helpful to have. I know you can like if you're looking at this. Okay, so there's actually Can you scroll through to the beginning that first code block, Shane?
Got it.
So it added a bunch. Endpoint count changed from 35 to 34. Sure, great. And then it added a bunch of endpoints to another endpoint slice. That doesn't seem like it's evidence of us moving endpoints. It sounds
So
like this is.
I do have a suggestion. So I see the last comment is that they're using a fairly out of date version. Presumably that doesn't make much of a difference,
Yeah.
but like it would be good to ask if they could repro it.
That is what Ben did.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is we may want to, given
or
time,
sorry, to post a repro. It's like if it's like just K3S and on version 30, right? Then it's like it's probably a lot harder for anyone else to kind of come to a conclusion on what is going on.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
The other thing I would add here is they're posting about bumping to 131. I don't know how long that'll take them, but there's a likelihood that by the time
They could disappear, right?
Well, they could disappear,
At
but
least
also,
for a while.
let's say it takes a month before someone looks at this again. Like it takes them a few weeks to upgrade, takes us a month to get back to it, and then 131's out of support, right? Like they may want to jump to something that's going to be supported longer, because we may end up just rinse and repeat. Hey, this is not supported yet either, or anymore either. I don't know. But yeah, I echo Bowie's thoughts of, the most useful thing is going to be if they can, find a way to consistently recreate this. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty difficult to nail down.
I think that sounds reasonable.
Another thought I had, and maybe this is getting too deep into the weeds, but they paste an error message in the second code block of the informer cache being out of date. I wonder if the endpoint controller is a symptom of an issue of their control plane been under too much pressure. And
well, they think that.
Yeah, but I think that's a key line, right? Like if the endpoint slice controller, which is running presumably on the same VM, same control plane node as API server, if even it is struggling to get updates from API server, then presumably everything else in the cluster, particularly data planes, would be. And so like maybe it's not, like maybe it's just their cluster's overloaded, and that, like, I've seen the root problem a lot, well, not a lot, but enough that if a control plane is overloaded, and data planes are not getting the most recent set of endpoints, if you're replacing endpoints rapidly, you're going to be in a bad place, because data plane is just operating on an old stale set of endpoints. That would be my first assumption of what's happening here, especially given this signal.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Does somebody want to pop in here and kind of summarize and ask some more questions of them?
I can do it. Which one is this?
This is 133474. Thank you, Bowie. No commitment or anything, just, move it along a little bit further. And I think the points, both about the cache and the point about if it takes you a little while to bump to 131, we might end up in a similar situation, makes some sense. So I guess the most important thing is, can you reproduce this on a I guess a non-distribution, like a standard Kubernetes control plane that's modern? Cool. All right, so the next one is from last month, and it's nodes that are not ready and which may have a node network unavailable condition are added to the load balancer services. And I read through this one and tried to skim it before the meeting, and I know Tim and Joel, Antonio, a bunch of people have chimed in. It kind of left off with a sense that this might be the cloud provider. I think implementation might be where it needs to, and I think Bridget kind of made a comment at the end here. So the cloud provider implementation might be where there's the gap. Do we want to even call this SIG network, etc.? Has anybody looked at this? Is Antonio on? I think Antonio's out.
Yeah, he's on vacation.
So I don't think anybody on here has really had anything to do with this one yet. So yeah, let's go back up real quick just to make sure I didn't misremember this one. Yeah, okay. So this is just the idea that it was putting things into service when the way they phrase it was the node wasn't ready, but it was getting added to the pool. And I remember Tim had said something in here about like using the kubeproxy health checks, et cetera, but I think at the end of the day, it is that specific implementation. So I'm tempted to say, to go with Bridget and be like, hey, maybe have the specific implementation look at this. But I don't know that I know quite enough to feel super confident about that.
I also, same spot. I mean, when I saw this immediately, I thought, is this really tied to SIG network and not just the specific implementation of load balancer, like the whatever cloud provider this is?
It's the OpenStack provider.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'll take this one and try to drive it forward a little bit because I talk with Michael quite a bit anyway. So, all right. I'll put that on my little to-do list here. Third one that's unassigned, Dan, the fallback partial user space proxy. So this is the idea that people want to use local host node ports. The only idea we came up with so far was a pretty bad hack. So Dan suggested maybe user space proxy just for this use case, but I think where we left off was, and I actually saw Antonio's post to the NetFilter mailing list and was wondering what he was doing, and then I tied it together with this one. But he reached out to the NetFilter mailing list and got a solution that is still kind of a hack, but it's, I guess, a hack in a scope that might be a little bit more reasonable.
Well, so although that's a solution for the local host node ports don't support IPv6 problem, which
yeah, okay,
is really not the problem that the people who want to use the registry. So this
gotcha.
issue started as, hey, there are a handful of different completely unrelated problems of which the local host node ports was only one, and we could solve all of them by doing user space proxy as a fallback. But it sort of got taken over by the discussion of local host node ports, and yeah, discussion is ongoing.
Okay, so is there anything to discuss with it here, or is it just, do we just say, are we basically accepting it or just calling it triage needs information then? Like needs discussion?
Is that a triage value? Sure.
Yeah, there's a triage value that I use sometimes for like, it's kind of being triaged, but it's not going to be accepted until we've done some discussion. I'll do that in a minute.
Okay.
Last one, I think it's needs information. Last one that was unassigned, kubeproxy. This one's from July. Kubeproxy in IPVS mode drops traffic for services with load balancer type. Sorry.
So this is an
with load
IPVS
balancer.
bug.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't have a chance to look at this one ahead of time.
In fact, it's one of the things that is discussed in the fallback partial user proxy thing because it could be fixed by that. I think our disposition here is won't fix because it's an IPVS bug and you should try NF tables.
Okay. Yeah, we've talked a lot about that recently. The last couple of calls, I feel like we've had discussions where we're kind of heading in that direction. I'm happy to follow up on that one as well. Okay, cool. There are some assigned issues we can go over if we have more time, but since there's a couple of agenda items, I want to pop back out. It's 20 after and do at least this one agenda item, and then we can, if we want to, stick around and go through a little bit more triage. So Rob, do you need to share screen?
No, I
Take
don't
it
think
away.
so. Certainly not for the first one. So we are trying to get 1.0 out for GIE sometime soon. There's an API review. Antonio's left some comments. I think a few other folks have left some comments. I think we're getting to a point that we're fairly happy about the state of this now. Just would love some. I guess we need a SIGNet TL API review. I don't know, something like that to formally sign off on this to let us move forward. We have made some, I think, useful and meaningful adjustments since then. Some tweaks that we've made since the last time I've raised this has been to change the selector. This is based on Antonio's feedback. We had a selector that matched what we have in service right now, which is just this empty map string. Sorry, you have to look at the last. I'll try and get a better thing, but you really have to look at the last commit. Otherwise, it just is awfully confusing and too much stuff in here. No, sorry.
No. I immediately clicked it, and I was like, nope. This one?
No, sorry. Like
What did I
way
click
down
now?
the list. Yeah,
What am I
don't
clicking?
know.
I'm not trying to click,
What?
actually. I'm not sure what I'm
Okay,
doing.
all right. Well, now it looks like you just pushed a change that kind of
What did
broke
I-
things. So, work in progress, apparently.
Oh, okay,
Oops.
yeah, somebody just did something.
Okay.
Wait a minute, what the
All
hell just
right.
happened?
Well,
That
I'll
literally
ping. I'll
happened
ping
while
in
I was looking
Signet.
at it? Okay. I was so confused. I
That's
thought I
fun.
did something. I was like, no, what did I do? Okay.
All right.
So we'll look at that later, but go ahead and describe it.
Yeah. I'll drop something in Signet Slack when this is ready for another look. But basically, the changes we've made based on review feedback are twofold. We have, other than like some tiny cleanup, the actual API changes we're making is we've adjusted the selector to have a match labels field. So this basically means it supports the same capabilities of service, but gives us a path to include match expressions like a proper full Kubernetes label selector in the future. We're not trying to add that right now, but we at least have adjusted the API so we have a path. The other thing is we initially had a single port. We got some very useful feedback that there are real use cases for multiple ports. This is different than service having multiple ports, where service has like a kind of an input port, like a front end port and a back end port mapping. What different ports mean or likely to mean in inference is just different ports that are serving the same thing. So basically a way to reuse the same endpoint for different entry points. It's a little funky, but what we've done for now is, again, the API can represent exactly the same thing, a single port, but we've made it a list instead. So it's a list with min and max length of 1, right? That's it. So it's, again, just trying to leave room open for growth if we need to, because it does seem likely, and trying to avoid the thing we did with service, probably other everywhere we had dual stack, where we had a single IP and then we had to have a list, and trying to avoid that here. Yeah, so those are the main changes from feedback we've gotten so far. Really hoping that we can get this out at least as a release candidate next week. So feedback in the next, to be clear, we've already gotten good feedback, but any additional feedback or signing off in the next few days would be awesome.
Rob, you can sign me up. We can talk through it if you want to meet in the next couple of days.
Okay, yeah, that'd be awesome. Thanks. Cool. The other one is kind of looking forward, like post v1.0. We've gotten a fair amount of feedback that users of this API are having trouble finding capacity they want in a single cluster. So if the capacity that is constrained is GPUs, which seems to be the common case, being able to spread that across multiple clusters, sometimes that means different regions, different environments, whatever it is, right? That is a really powerful concept. That means we're trying to look into how we do multi-cluster inference. I proposed an API in this doc that is basically mirroring the capabilities of multi-cluster service and how that works today. So there is an inference pool import API. There's some nuance here. It's not exactly multi-cluster service because we don't just care about endpoints. We care about endpoint pickers too. I don't want to go too far into the weeds here, but there's a lot of discussion on the doc. Proposed this, talked with SIG multi-cluster a couple times now. Obviously, brought this to meeting in Gateway Inference Extension many weeks now. And this has just recently, as of last night, transitioned into a PR. We think we're reasonably close to consensus on the approach we're proposing here. One thing I'll just, and the PR is linked below. Thanks, Shane. One thing I'll just mention is in that doc, like it's not in the PR because it's kind of bigger topic, but in that doc, there's some alternatives. We've ruled out using the existing MCS API for this because it just doesn't work. That's been pretty conclusive. The second alternative, though, is something that may make more sense later on. Like I don't take this to whatever, but some idea of a more generic API. Like right now, multi-cluster service API only supports a single type, like it, and the namespace name sameness require it to always be the same type. As we get more types of backends in Kubernetes networking space, you can imagine that we're either going to be stuck doing the same thing we're doing for inference right now, which is similar pattern but slightly different, or we could look at something like a object ref or something that anyway, so just throwing that out there as a high level idea, and we'll see if that goes anywhere. Also have just mentioned it in SIG multi-cluster and other communities as well. But yeah, that's all on my side. Any feedback or comments are welcome on either item.
The multi-cluster use case makes sense to me. I have this strong suspicion that there'll be a number of people who will have, well, there will be a number of people who will be doing model serving that will not want their GPUs on every cluster and will kind of centralize them.
Yeah.
So they'll want to be able to set up a gateway and routes for a namespace in cluster A to do inference, but the inference is on another cluster.
Even if that's just purely for availability of like some specific data center has GPUs available that are not in the other ones.
Yeah. So exactly. I see that 100%. The high level, like what the reason to do it. Yes.
Awesome. So also shameless plug for anyone who's interested. The Gateway Inference community meeting is immediately after this one. So obviously anyone's welcome there.
Cool. All right. In theory, that gets us to the end of our agenda. Unless anybody else has anything, we'll give a couple seconds if anybody has like a pop-up thing or something they want to talk about real quick. And if not, does anybody have a strong appetite for going back over the assigned triage items? I'm fine with sticking around for that, but if everybody else is like, nah, not really, we can do it later.
I could use some free time, so I might drop, but obviously folks are welcome to stick around.
I'm in a car, so I'm not super helpful.
Okay, I think that sounds like maybe it's okay to pass on that. If you do have an assigned issue, let's do it this way. If you do have an assigned issue in the triage list, which is on this document, there's a triage link that'll take you there. Just check in if there's a, if something's been sitting for a minute, make sure you pop in on it and just kind of move it forward as you can. But yeah, we'll adjourn early, give everybody a half hour back. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time. Until next time.
Thanks.